Hey everyone, welcome to Gaming in the Keats. I'm your host Chris, and I'm bringing you a battle report today of this online Warhall tournament that's testing out the new Season Pack 2 legendary characters. So one of the requirements of this tournament is that you have to write a list with one of these characters in there. So this is the Insert Clever Name Here tournament. And I'm chosen to go back to my Dread Elves just for this online tournament versus my opponent out in California, Undying Dynasties. Um, so yeah, with that, let's get into the list. All right, so with my list today, I'm doing just a quote unquote cheap, in my opinion, but I don't know. Like, this is a manticore just flying around, with a little bit of war gear here, just flying around trying to be a pain. So the halberd with divine attacks and an extra attack, so 3 up, 5 up, and then a 3 up Aegis against flaming. So she's just gonna fly around and be a pain in the ass. Next, I have a warlock outcast on evocation, so all the usual bells and whistles there. And then I took a binding scroll because why not? Now the special character here is I'm doing the Black Rose with the Obsidian Thorns upgrade. So first of all, the Black Rose is like a basically like a character killer dread prince. So she has to be the general, and then she gets her special blades that gives her extra bonuses against characters, and then she has these dances that she gets to choose. Well, she must choose them whenever she's in combat. So she has base 5 attacks with the paired weapons, and then she can get up to 7 attacks for +2 attack and then +2 strength. She's coming in at strength 6, AP 4, I think. If I'm doing this off the top of my head, it's either AP 4 or AP 5. Into characters specifically, it has to be against a character, and then her dances. So she has to choose one in each round of combat. But they are kind of very specific to her being in contact with a character. So the first dance is she basically gets to make way, even if she's already in contact with enemy models, as long as she ends within contact of a character. The second dance is she effectively chooses an enemy character that she's in contact with, and both her and the enemy character do not actually get to attack, and instead I roll the maximized D3, and then my opponent rolls a D3, and then the player who lost loses health points from that character by how much they lost by, and no other attacks can be allocated onto those characters in either direction. And then the final dance is she basically gets hatred and zeal towards characters. Again, going off the top of my head, shooting from the hip here. But it has to be against characters, but the downside is she's +1 to hit. And you'll see that come up later, kind of the awkwardness of that. The upgrade for Obsidian Thorns means she gets exclusive to Obsidian Guard. The Obsidian Guard get MR1, they get +1 charge range, and then opponent enemy models cannot flee from the Obsidian Guard if they charge. They can still flee from other units if they get charged, but they cannot flee from the Obsidian Guard. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And she's a 3 wound character, and then she has a 3 up armor, 5 up Aegis. So there you have it. I think she's pretty great, to be honest. She's pretty interesting. We got 23 spears with the Cadron's Penance, so if they're in a combined charge, but all units in that combined charge get to reroll charges, which is cool. We got 2 units of 10 auxiliaries with standard bearers, so they are scoring. Got 10 Corsairs with repeaters and a musician. And then we have 24 Obsidian Guard with a banner of speed. So you combo that with the Divine Altar, so all of a sudden the Obsidian Guard become effectively mobility 7 and then also charge 7. So they can all of a sudden charge kind of like some cavalry units, which is pretty funny. 4 Gorgons with paired weapons, because cool, yeah, why not? 8 Black Cloaks, just for some, yeah, being Black Cloak shenanigans. Like the 16 poison shots are really nice. Scouting, Vanguard. They can also be kind of interesting in combat too when they charge. Devastating charge, distracting with strength 4 paired weapons now, which are neat. Poison attacks here. And then, yeah, the Altar of Yema. So that is my list. It's a combat list. We got 2 big, scoring units, the Spears and the Obsidian Guard. We got another big punchy unit with the Gorgons. And of course, even though the Gorgons are only AP1, you still have their petrifying stares, and then of course they become like absolute beat sticks when you get spectral blades off on them. So yeah, and then we just got some support units, got a bunker or potential chaff / anti-chaff. Then we got and so that's my list. So my opponent, Circle Hippies, Undying Dynasties. We got Renepe, the Undying Sun. So this is a giant chariot lord, which is pretty cool. We got a Death Cult Hierarch with, again, cosmology, usual stuff, soul, conduit, scroll, desiccation, mimic cloak. We got another pharaoh on a chariot, Jackal's Blessing, Scourge King. So 2 Killy chariot lords, 6 and 5 skeleton chariots, both with Banner of Speed. So these chariots are rocking charge 9. So that's pretty nuts already. We got 34 skeletons, just a nice break of skeletons with parry. Got 20 skeletons for scoring purposes and being entombed, so coming up and ambushing. 16 skeleton archers, just there. 6 Shopti archers, again for some long-range DACA. And then 2 units of 3 great vultures for chaff purposes. So, Renepa, forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. So this is like the special chariot character on like it's 100 by 100. So he takes up a lot of space in the unit. So he does like what? 2d3 plus 3 impact hits. He gives his unit Strider when he's in it. And then he's like a 3-up, 5-up fortitude, and then he gets +1 attack, +1 offensive skill, and +1 agility for every model in his unit divided in half. So he can be actually pretty nasty because he's like coming in again at strength 7, I think AP4. So yeah, he's pretty gnarly. So with all those impact hits on the chariots, I mean, like that's pretty cool, I think. So yeah, that's my opponent's list. So for maps, we rolled up. We got Tafria 8, Refused Flank, which is interesting. We got the Herald Red Stub primary. And then we have I got Assassinate. My opponent chose Settle the Score. So yeah, I'll go into the pregame thoughts about this one. But yeah, this is the map. As you can see here, we got 2 walls. We got an impassable off to that left side. We got a forest, a hill, field, and a water feature on here with the ruins in the middle. So off the top of the bat here, I mean, like, with this primary, it's so determined upon, like, who gets to be the defender, I think. Like, specifically with a lot of these maps I'm seeing here, with this objective, because you have to have a scoring unit, like, touching a terrain piece without your opponent having a scoring unit touching that same terrain piece to get those clues. And then whoever has the most clues by the end of turn 3 gets to decide where the objective goes, and then the opponent who has a scoring unit within 6 inches of that objective at the end of the game gets to determine where it is. Or sorry, not excuse me, wins the primary. So basically, being the defender, especially with this deployment type, especially with this primary, like, is just kind of gonna dictate. All right, who's gonna get the 13 already? I feel, and then it's like up to. It really just kind of determines like how much do I want to lose by. So in this case, my opponent won the roll off to choose, so my opponent got to be the defender. So I just kind of had to make a decision. Okay, like, do I try and play conservatively and lose like 14-6 because it's going to be difficult to push with those chariots just zoning the objectives. My opponent does have pretty good range damage that can reach out and touch me before I can touch him. So it's very likely that he can get his secondary before I can do that, and because my secondary involves me killing the characters which are going to be in the units, like, it's just I think it's very difficult to achieve. So that means my opponent has the secondary advantage if I don't push. So when I went into this matchup already knowing that, like, okay, I'm effectively going to be getting, like, sorry, not 16-4, 14-6 is what I meant to say. Effectively looking between like 6 and 7 points, maybe. Like, I'm just gonna try and see if I can push on one side to try and get points, to try and get my secondary, and see if I can find a way to like break through that one side using the Manticore and some of my chaff pieces. Because quite frankly, my opponent also has the chaff to be able to dictate the charges, even with those chariots zoning me at charge 9. So it's just a very difficult matchup for me. I think I don't think it's a complete red because my opponent would have to expend resources for it, but I do think it's an orange for sure. So really, the micro plays for me are really focusing on how I can utilize the Manticore and my chaff pieces. Just being constantly cognizant of the chariot's +1 charge range. His special character in his unit makes it kind of interesting. Like, do you try and snipe that character, or do you try and kill the models around him so he becomes less effective? And then also, like, another thing to be cognizant of is Truth in Time. Truth in Time is, I think, a very effective spell against me because it just can slow my advance, like, even more so in this matchup. And obviously, I'm focused more on stopping those missiles. So, yeah, Truth in Time is, I think, is still something I have to be aware of going into this match. All right, so yes, as you can see, my opponent chose sides. Got to be the defender. So, and we had the diagonal, so that meant he, of course, he gives me the impassable as well. And this is where the 3 objectives for this, the Herald Red Stub, are in relation to where they could be, which is pretty interesting since it's auto-generated on Warhall. So this is the deployment. So I thought to myself, well, if I play conservatively, okay, I can put my scoring units here, 1, 2, and 3, which just gives my opponent so much board space to just, like, yeah, just kind of control my advance. So I only have 3 terrain pieces in my deployment zone anyway, and I'd have to have a scoring unit. So I have to be Spears, Obsidian Guard, and then the 2 units of auxiliaries, which would just be it's just awkward. It's really awkward to try to mitigate. So already I'm just kind of just accepting the fact, like, okay, my opponent's going to try and choose, my opponent's going to be able to choose where it goes. So I just have to try and anticipate as best I can and plan for it. And I'm still going to try and push regardless, just to see, right? Like, I just want to see if I can do it. So for deployment, I put these guys way back here. They didn't need to be this far back. They really didn't. I just wanted them out of like missile range, out of just like just as a reserve to be able to react in case my opponent chose this one and like brought up his entombed skeletons here to just take it in the end. Like that's what I was trying to anticipate there, or just have them keep marching and see if I can like get the center. If my opponent knows I'm already pushing, then most likely I'm not even going to be on the center anyway, because those entombed skeletons can just pop up wherever he needs them. Um, but um, but yeah, so we got the auxiliaries back here. Probably could have been up further. We got the manticore here, just like trying to chill along the side. We got obsidian guard, corsairs with the wizard, the spear unit with the altar. We got the unit of auxiliaries here to hopefully, I don't know, maybe do something about this objective in the end game in case my opponent chooses this one. We got Gorgons kind of zoning the far side. So for my opponent's secondary, my opponent chose the Gorgons and the Corsairs as his settled the score. So my opponent got the drop. So we have this unit here of chariots with the Jackal's Blessing Lord in here. We got the Shopti just chilling on the wall, 2 units of birds, skeletons with the Death Cult Hierarch in there, and then we got the special character chariot along with his other chariots here, and they have Strider, remember. My opponent used this little symbol here to mark that this forest now becomes a desert. So, and this is my opponent's Defender Vanguard here already onto this terrain piece. So you can see I do my Vanguard as well. So yeah, it's my turn 1. Let's see what I can do. So yeah, the Manticore goes out to the side over here. I probably could have pushed the Manticore up more forward, but I just didn't want him to get, like, I don't know, stuck on skeletons. But yeah, so push the Manticore out here. Blackcoats find a really nice sweet spot after their Vanguard and marching to get out of line of sight from both the skeletons and the chariots. So I'm really liking where the Black Cloaks are right now. Everything else just marches forward. The cool thing with these guys here, now that they're nehme, is that they get their they get that extra mobility. So now they're mobility 6. So I was able to actually go 12 inches with this unit to pull them outside, just outside of that line of sight of this chariot charge here, which is really handy. Archers are staying back outside the charge range. Same with the Gorgons. The Gorgons are obviously just going to be taking shots. I know this, but like, what else are they going to do? I'm not gonna push them yet, and like they just get eaten by impact hits. So yeah, the wizard comes over here to try and do something, I guess. I don't know. I'm wondering if I should have just taken, instead of distracting, if I should have just taken Dance Macabre, to be honest, to just help me with some mobility. But, or did I? No, I took Curse of the Damned. I didn't even take my Hereditary. So yeah, turn 1, I get Curse of the Damned off on the skeletons. That's basically it. And then shooting, holy crap, shooting the Black Cloaks just go to town on these skeletons and end up killing 8 skeletons. Like, they take out the back rank, which was like, good job, Black Cloaks. Alright, my opponent just kind of shuffles on his turn 1 here. He shuffles around, just making sure he's outside of charge range of the Gorgons. And just kind of repositions his battle line a little bit. Here, the skeletons move up. He doesn't really care if the Manticore charges in. Like, the Manticore is just going into, like, Death Trap range if I do that. Same with the Black Cloaks. Like, that'd be silly. But, yeah. In Magic, it's pretty critical here. My opponent fails an Ice and Fire onto the Black Cloaks from his Death Cult Hierarch, or Hierophant, whatever it is. And then I dispel the Thunder and Lightning. Shooting then only takes out 2 Black Cloaks. So right now the Black Cloaks are pretty healthy and are ready to get in the way. Okay, I think maybe shooting also killed. Oh, maybe I lost an obsidian guard. No, I don't know. Maybe shooting killed some obsidian guard as well. I can't remember. Because they shouldn't have taken DTs when they charged. Because the altar Yema gives them Strider for all of this. So I don't know why there's one missing there. Um, But yeah, basically, I just push up with the spears, and I'm just saying, like, you know what? You have to deal with the spears. I'm just going to be right in your face. I don't care if the Achapti and your spear unit charges me. I do not care. So I'm just forcing my opponent to expend his chaff. The spears are also outside of line of sight of these chariots, which is pretty nice. Again, with that wonderful mobility. Also, if my opponent was to combo charge in with the Oshapti and the spears, the Oshapti would be -1 to hit because they'd be touching the wall, which is kind of cheeky. But yeah, basically, I get off another, which was actually silly of me. I get off just another Course of the Damned, it looks like, onto the spears again. My opponent stops a Soul Blight onto his vultures. But then other than that, it's a pretty quiet magic phase. I really don't have shooting. The Black Cloaks don't do anything to the chariots this time, which is kind of a bummer. I was hoping to get some wounds through here. But hey, I'm happy that they're alive right now, so there you go. Oh, yes, and then you can see the Obsidian Guard. The Obsidian Guard makes short work of these skeletons, like, no problem. Okay, so my opponent chasts me here, and he doesn't leave me any overruns, so obviously no charges. It would be baiting out, So he backs up one more time. He's going to try and deal with the Black Cloaks again. The entombed skeletons come up over here to block up the Obsidian Guard one more time. So, I guess I lost an Obsidian Guard into the... I don't know. I don't know how I lost that Obsidian Guard. Maybe more shooting went into them. Oh yeah, from the skeleton archers. That's what's doing it. Excuse me. The previous skeleton archers, they shot them. As you can see, Gorgons actually got off a little lightly in my previous turn of shooting from the chariots and the Ushapti, so I'm happy about that. But yeah, spears are blocked. My opponent's backing up a bit and is just trying to be patient, trying to take out my little units while blocking up the spears. So in Magic, my opponent does get off the hereditary onto this chariot unit, but again fails ice and fire, and I stop thunder and lightning onto the Black Cloaks. So Black Cloaks are again still alive. Shooting does not deal with them, so there's actually now 5 left. So again, this gives me just a little bit more time. Okay, so here I'm using the Black Cloaks once again to just block the Manticore advance, just facing out this way. It was really close to the edge with like the maximizing of the charge, just making sure that the chariots really do not have an overrun onto this Manticore. Obsidian Guard charged the skeletons here, and I charged the spears into the chaff. It's just, again, trying to stay... I'm giving my opponent 6s here with these chariots, just trying to bait out the 6s. This time, in my opponent's shooting phase, you can see finally got rid of one Gorgon, which is, is what it is. Here I make a bit of a mistake with my positioning. My wizard is here, and for some reason I kept thinking some of the evocation stuff was 24 inches. I don't know why. But the missiles are 24 inches, but the hexes and the buffs are actually 18 inches. So I accidentally lift my wizard on this side of the Corsairs and not on this side. No, she's right here. So right now she's just in range to just blast off some birds. So I do get off my opponent lets through spectral blades onto the spears, because I'm just going to beef them up in case my opponent wants, like, thinks about countercharging them. And then I dice my opponent on Soul Blight. Unfortunately, there still leaves one bird alive with Soul Blight, so that sucks. I was hoping to kill the unit 246, but in all fairness, that was actually probably pretty unlikely that I was going to get this unit. So, Obsidian Guard crumbled the skeletons. That's not a surprise. Although Perry would have, I did get a little lucky that the Obsidian Guard perhaps hit with. I mean, they just had a lot of static as well. The Black Rose, she did her thing. I think I'm a little confused with her rules. Like, if there's no character in the unit, I guess she still has to choose like one of her dances. So in this case, you choose to make way. I don't know. It's a little confusing, because you don't want to give your opponent +1 to hit, and then you don't want to just like, yeah, I don't know. But no, you can't make way because she has to be put in base contact of the character. So technically, if there's no character in the unit, the only dance you can actually choose is the one that gives her zeal towards hatred characters and whatnot, because you don't necessarily have to be in base contact with a character with that one, but it just means the unit gets +1 to hit against her. I don't know, this is confusing, but whatever. Obsidian Guard take out this. Shooting, like, does, I think, 2 wounds to the chariot, which is cute. Spears, get rid of the birds, and I just turn to make sure everything's in their front, so the skeletons and the Ushapti are in my front. So, yay! Alright, so 1 bird alive does its job. That's a bummer. But is what it is. This is the turn where I should have used my binding scroll. I really should have used my binding scroll, and I totally forgot I had it. Spoiler alert, I don't use it for the entire game, so that was a wasted 50 points, and it actually made, I think, a significant difference here. So my opponent is able to finally deal with the Black Cloaks. My opponent does not charge the Black Cloaks. Instead, he backs up, and then he is able to finally shoot them off. But I think I dispelled like some buffs onto the skeletons to stop them from healing onto these chariots. But in so doing, my opponent gets a Truth in Time on the Obsidian Guard. So now this was actually a pretty good charge for the Obsidian Guard. I think I needed like a 4 or a 3 because they're like charge 7, which is hilarious. But now with Truth of Time, well, interestingly, no, it must have been a 4, because interestingly, with charge, so I'm set to charge 4. +1 for banner speed, and then +1 for the Black Rose, so I still go up to 6. And I remember this charge, I needed a 5 to get here, but it made a difference. So Manticore goes, Manticore is actually pretty easy. So really, yeah. My opponent chaffs in a way where if I maximize, I can't get an overrun into the skeletons as well. So that good on my opponent. Shooting, he's plinking down wounds on the Gorgons, so they're slowly being whittled down. I mean, I could just choose to like back up, I guess, at this rate. I don't know, because then his like chariots just like come and eat my side, which he probably could have actually started doing anyway, to be honest. I'm surprised my opponent wasn't just more aggressive here, because I really don't have anything to deal with this unit on the side now that the Gorgons are only like 2. So yeah, I start pulling the trigger. My opponent, of course, chooses this side to be where the actual red stub, like where the objective is. So I have my piddly little unit of archers here versus his chariot unit. So I'm like, oh god. Let's see, somehow I'm thinking maybe I can if the Gorgons survive, maybe I can make a play where I push them up and just like block the chariots my last turn, and just like try and have these guys here to tie the primary. That's my thought. Um, but yeah, spears charge the bird to get rid of it. Oh, it looks like I could actually hit the. Looks like I could have actually hit the skeletons. To be honest, there was a play to do a combo charge of the manticore and the skeletons into this spear unit. Um, I wasn't confident with that one because this unit does have parry, and like I just couldn't afford for both the manticore and the spears to just get stuck and then like eat it from a chariot charge if I don't crumble this unit. So instead, I just charge the manticore in and just be like, all right, let's see what I can do. I did charge the obsidian guard to do the combo charge. I did get the maximized with the manticore because it's a combined charge, and I needed a 5. I rolled a 4 on 2 dice on Swift, so that was a bummer. That would have been, I think, game breaking right there. That would have absolutely opened up this whole side, and I think that could have been big. So that Truth of Time really made a difference. In Magic, this is where I make the mistake. In Magic, I left the Warlock over on this side, so she really should have been over here to like affect these combats. So when I realized that, I was just like, oh shit. So I just put Curse of the Damned up onto the skeletons. My opponent stops spectral, or not skeletons on the spears. My opponent stops spectral blades onto the spears. So I'm just kind of like annoyed at this rate. But I'm hoping that the Manticore can do well. In the combat, I make the decision to just attack the unit because the unit, when I'm attacking the unit, I'm hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s with the Lord, and then the Manticore's hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s. So I just have a better chance of just taking away this character's effectiveness and just trying to crumble down the unit. And so I do exactly that. I kill a couple of chariots. My opponent only puts 1 wound onto the Manticore, which is great, so the unit crumbles them more. So the chariots have... There's 3 chariots left. Yeah, 3 chariots. There will be 3 chariots left with 2 wounds on them by the end of the combat, so that's good. And here, oh yeah, if I overran to the skeletons here, yeah, the Ushapti totally have a flank, and there was no way I could have chaffed the Ushapti, so I just chose to not overrun here. I just stuck and just reformed wide to like basically block off to keep the Ushapti and the spears in my front. Okay, in my opponent's turn 4, you can see that my opponent took advantage of this cheeky little flank charge the Ushapti had on the obsidian guard here. I tried my best to reform to kind of block that off, but unfortunately, we did the angle and the Ushapti could just squeak past and hit the obsidian guard in the flank. It was a 5 on a single dice, and I chose the conservative route and chose to flee and not risk that 33% chance of him actually making it, because if that was the case, then I'm definitely getting a massive loss this game, for sure. So I chose to flee, and my opponent chose to not redirect into the spears. So yeah, in other news, my opponent just continues to back up to make sure he's outside of charge range of the Gorgons. And basically, you can see like he has no more chaff, and he's just going to try and buff his units for the impending charge of the spears, or just try and regrow some chariots here. So that being said, he does get off Duty Eternal, and he does get off Altered Sight onto this unit, which does regrow some models. However, the Manticore does swing back and kill those models that were just regrown. The Manticore does take 2 more wounds for her troubles, unfortunately, but I still win the combat, so that's really good. Shooting, he does get a little spicy here with the Gorgons, and he is able to take out another Gorgon and leave the remaining Gorgon on 1 wound. Okay, so my turn 5. At this rate, I'm just gonna charge and hope for the best. This is the best I could do to maximize. Yeah. Um, so spears go in. Um, yeah, Manticore's holding on. This time I decide to push the archers. I just said like I'm either gonna give you the archers. Um, I don't know. I just was like, I don't know what I was thinking here. I was thinking maybe like, okay, I'm gonna push them and try and like maybe get like a flank charge on the Ushapti if my opponent just doesn't deal with them and wants to go for the Gorgon, um, or just like flee and then rally and just hope that they save their points. And then if they, maybe hoping that my opponent fails his redirect. I don't know what I was thinking here, but I did want to make my opponent like have a give my opponent a choice to make there. Um, so on my turn, I do get off a Spectral Blades onto the spears. I fail Whispers of the Veil. Wait, no. Excuse me. Um, my opponent stops Course of the Damned on the Manticore, and I get off a Whispers of the Veil onto the, oh God, whatchamacallit? I get off a Whispers of the Veil onto the Chariots. The Obsidian Guard, thankfully, they do rally, which is helpful. So, in the combat, the Chariot does 1 wound. The Manticore's alive. I kill another. This time, the Manticore kind of she fluffs a little bit, and I only killed the 1 Chariot. And then like the last wound is snuck through, and she fucking dies. Which, to be fair, she held up that Chariot unit for quite a while and did a lot of damage to it. So I'm like, I'm not too upset, but it leaves now the spears open for a flank charge. So I'm just like, oh, fuck. In this combat, the spears did amazing. And I crumbled the unit down to like 12 models. So that was awesome. Like the altar went insane, yeah, and like Spectral Blades is just fantastic with +1 to wound. So that was sweet. But nope, they're going to get countercharged by the world at this rate. So, oof, not looking good. Okay, so spears take the chariot charge. They get charged by the Ushapti. Yeah. And then my opponent also chooses to charge the auxiliaries. I choose to flee. I roll like a 12, which is hilarious. And my opponent redirects into the Gorgon, so he gets the Gorgon right there. Impact hits, no surprise, is just going to kill the Gorgon. So he gets his secondary. So, unfortunately, my opponent does get off a Wheel and Woe onto the Skeletons, as well as the, whatever it is, it's labeled AS, and I can't remember what spell that is off the top of my head. It just, yeah, +2 offensive, I think. So, yeah, I mean, the spears put up a good fight, but, impact hits alone just, like, nuke the unit. And it basically kills them down to, like, 2 models. This is an auto break. So the spear unit is decimated, but the altar is still alive and full wounds and has to run. And so my opponent elects to pursue with the chariots, which I thought was interesting. And he had the altar run from the chariots, which I also thought was an interesting decision. I guess my opponent maybe thought that he should have overran perhaps the other way, like have the altar go this way to like block up more charges from the Obsidian Guard, and then like held with the chariots. But I think I would have been okay with either, to be honest. I don't think. But the altar hilariously also rolls a double 6 and jumps across the wall, no problem. So yeah, and the chariots are now showing the Obsidian Guard their flank. Okay, so on my turn, this is, I think, a questionable move by me. So I combo charge the Corsairs and the Obsidian Guard. Reasoning here is that, like, the Obsidian Guard needed a 4, and I wanted that combo charge to, like, just help get them back into the flank, like, to increase the odds. My opponent and I had a bit of a discussion of, like, how to maximize, because originally my idea was to hit the point of contact with the Corsairs on this side, and then have the Obsidian Guard hit this, on this side with the Chariot, but it kind of got a little complicated, and because the Chariots are 50, I'm 20, no matter what, we have to maximize, like, 7 models. So I have 4 Obsidian Guard touching and 3 Corsairs touching, and just for ease, I think, I just decided to, like, just do it this way, which is unfortunate, which is not good for the Corsair unit. Like, this is just not good. But I'm wondering if I could have, like, pivoted or wheeled a little bit with the Obsidian Guard to at least touch that corner, pick them up, and then maximize the 4 to get around the Corsairs. But that's a conversation for another time. I don't know. I don't know if that's even doable, to be honest, like with the crisscross thing anymore. So, yeah. In Magic, oh gosh. Magic, I get off a Course of the Damned on the Obsidian Guard, but that's basically it. My opponent stops Spectral Blades on the Corsairs. And, well, here's another awkward moment for the Black Rose. So I'm in contact with the enemy unit, and the enemy unit does have a character, but I'm not in base contact with the character. So the Black Rose doesn't get her bonuses, and then I have to choose, like, it says must choose one of the dances, and so the only dance that I'm actually able to choose is the one that just makes my opponent +1 to hit against me, even though I have hatred towards characters and zeal or whatever. But, like, I'm not in base contact with the character, so it's just like, it was a little awkward, and I was like, this is okay, like, kind of strange. I'm not sure if that's how it was intended to be played. I don't know, but it was just awkward because I was not in base contact with a character. So the other 2 dances I technically could not do, because they require that you have to, you either end your movement in base contact with a character for the make way, or that you are in base contact with an enemy character. So the only dance you can choose in this situation is the one that gives her hatred, and then your opponent gets the +1 to hit. So hence the -1 to hit. But with all that being said, the Obsidian Guard easily kill the unit, and the Black Rose just single-handedly kills this Chariot model. So then that means this character now he's height 4, so now has 4 attacks that he can choose back onto either the Black Rose but my character decided to attack the Outcast, and then the Outcast takes 2 wounds and survives at the moment. So I was like, ooh. But with all the static combat res, the character pops, and that at least gives me my secondary. And in my opponent's final turn, you can see this is where everything ends up. My opponent charges the Chariots into the altar. My previous turn, the altar rallied, and I did my best to keep the Chariots in my front arc as close as possible. However, upon maximization, this is just a whisker inside that 6-inch. So unfortunately, I was unable to prevent that. And then here, after the combat, I was kind of stuck with the Corsairs and the Obsidian Guard, so I couldn't really reform the Obsidian Guard how I wanted. So basically, when my opponent charged the Ashapti into the Corsairs, they did flee through the Obsidian Guard. However, again, the Ushabti were able to squeak by and touch them and kill them. So that was pretty unfortunate there. It cost me a lot of points at the end. So a move that I was thinking about what I should have probably have done in this situation, knowing that I can't prevent my opponent from getting this objective with the reform of the altar, I really just should have fled. And reason being, if I had fled, the altar would have probably, probably would have been ended up right around in this area, and it actually would have probably prevented the Ushabti from being able to connect with the Corsairs, saving me some points there. Yeah, depending on the order of operations, like had he charged the chariots first, then I should have just fled with the altar first to block the Ushabti's charge. So even though I give up the altar, I'm still saving my wizard bunker and the the Corsairs, which also, interestingly enough, maybe depending on where the altar had ended up, having to connect the chariots might have also pulled him far enough away from the primary objective. So again, just that one decision there could have at least tied me on the objective and saved me some points. But that's, that's a what if scenario, and that did not happen, but it could have given the chance for that to occur. So well played. A good game to my opponent, Circle Hippie, and yeah, let's take a look at the final score. All right. Well, congrats to Circle Hippie on the win. It was well deserved, nicely done, very patient game. I was definitely on the back foot, but I thought I gave it a good go to try and get points where I could. But as kind of predicted, it was not. It was definitely an uphill battle. That my opponent gets the 16, which includes his secondary and his primary. I do at least get my secondary, which is nice. So yeah, that would have. And then with some micro things, I think some of my micro mistakes probably cost me about a point or two. But that being said, that kind of fell into what I was predicting from the match. Had I had lost the round, or not lost the round, lost the role to be the defender. So, great game, man, and looking forward to the next one. So yeah, I'm not going to discuss this in too much detail, but yeah, macro stuff, which is clearly the first role of the game really did, I think, affect the match pretty heavily. Although it's still, I think, not a good matchup for me, because of those chariot charges. It's just hard, but I do felt like I did my best to try and execute my game plan. That you could also make the argument that I just don't try and push, and I just play conservative and just take a smaller loss, maybe just a 6 or a 7 if my opponent can't get his secondary. So I think that could have been the option, but I think my opponent also can just push me, and has the chaff to do it anyway. So I did not feel confident that plan was going to work either. So yeah, there's a lot of micro stuff that was going on there. I think my Manticore positioning and placing the Manticore could have been better. I got lucky with the Black Cloaks surviving. You can make an argument that I could have also played the Gorgons differently, maybe pulled them back instead. But yeah, they just, unfortunately, I just put them in a position where finally, when my opponent was whittling down to 1, I was just all right, well, I'm just going to force you out wide and hopefully try and pull you away from the objective. Positioning of the wizard and the Corsairs was pretty big, and not using my bunker effectively with the range of my spells. Reforms on the Obsidian Guard, I probably could have done that to maybe prevent the Corsairs. I don't know. But then, yeah, I was kind of blocking myself anyway, so I'm not sure if that's actually valid. And then, yeah, the last turn, flee with the altar could have probably saved me some points there, depending on what I rolled. But I'm just being nitpicky at myself at this rate. So there you have it. All right, thanks again to my opponent, Circle Hippie, for just a fantastic game. Great opponent. So, thank you for making it all the way this far, for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and comment on what you see here. Any thoughts and comments are always welcome. It helps that algorithm get this battle report out to people who are interested. So, thank you, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Ciao, ciao for now, y'all.